Hello and welcome to this episode of Flex That Works. We're recording live here in Manchester for GCUC UK, and we are joined now by Ben Newton, the Operations Director from Patch, and Katy Tennant, Director of Operations for UK and EU with Clockwise Offices. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
You're just off the stage from a panel. How
Indeed.
did it go?
Good, I think. It was a good panel. Yeah.
It was, yeah.
Good fun. Talking about unreasonable hospitality and saving money to give more money to our members. That was the goal.
Very good. Anything come out of it that you didn't expect?
All the questions that I asked Katy.
No, I think everyone was quite nervous actually, but it was really good.
Yeah.
It was really good, and some learnings definitely to take away. I think we covered a lot of ground, which was good.
Definitely.
But hopefully it's useful for everyone in the room. But you never know, do you?
That's it. Did they get a little bit of a Q&A at the end? Did people pitch in any little bit?
It's been very quiet.
It's a shy crowd. But I think what was really useful at the end, like ultimately the summary, I think, is just like if you're genuine, if you're a genuine person and a genuine company, and you actually have interest in your members, then that's the core of what you need to be doing. Like, you just need to be. Community is not just about like saying the word community. Like, if you're a genuinely care, then yeah, you're winning, or you're a step to winning anyway.
It'll come across for sure. I know you've been doing loads of work on data, gathering data, communicating with other operators about the importance of data. So definitely going to ask you a couple of questions around this.
Sure.
Where are you at for now with it? How far have things come along?
So Open Ops project started a couple of months ago. Kind of a bit of fun to some extent, as much as fun as data can be. But the goal was to, after speaking with Katy and other peers, how do we benchmark data basically? Like, we don't have operational costs aren't benchmarked anywhere. So, how much am I spending on cleaning versus how much Clockwise is, or how much other regional operators are? Am I doing a good job as an operator? Are my costs in line? So we've created a website ultimately where this data can go in. Currently we have about 10 operators, UK operators, that have contributed, one US and one in Belgium as well, that have contributed to their side as well. So data is slowly starting to trickle in, and it's been quite insightful. We're starting to see kind of where the biggest gaps are. There's a learning, particularly we had a workshop earlier, which was great, with other operators, and have learned that there's some more nuanced cases that we need to work into this model to be able to benchmark more effectively. Because, do we have repairing obligations on our spaces? Well, of course, that's going to skew the maintenance lines, etc. So there needs to be a bit more detail in the background for us to be able to actually get something really beneficial from it. But the goal really being here, and kind of continuing speaking to my peers, is if we can get 20 plus operators on there, ideally 50 plus, then we're in a position where actually that benchmark data becomes really valuable for everybody, and we can all see it, and it's free. Like, the whole point of this is it's a free thing that every operator can dive into and just say, am I doing a good job? And also the flip side of that is turning around to their cleaning supplier or whoever, name supplier, and say, based on my square footage and where I sit here, this is what I'm paying, this is what others are paying. I need you to work out if you can come in line to this. Or you make a conscious decision as an operator that actually I'm going to pay more money because this company shares my values, or this company is exceptional, or I'm going to grow with this company, or there's another reason behind it that But just being able to have that data is the start of the conversation. It's not the end of the conversation. So, yeah.
I wonder, is that testament to where the industry is, in that it's growing at such a rapid rate? There's still a lot of pie to be divvied up, and we've seen a lot of new customer types now coming into the industry as well, or first ventures into co-working. So you guys obviously feel that there's a big enough opportunity for everybody involved to push this industry on, to share all your data. And once that gets saturated, we'll all get back to closed off. Because
Someone will buy it.
Yeah.
I think it's huge, because I come from hospitality originally, so I was in hotels for a very long time, and hospitality are great at sharing data, occupancy rates, all of those things. There's a company called STR that you feed in your numbers to, and they will send that back anonymised. It's just based on your local comp set. And who is in that comp set, but you can't see the individual performance of each location. We are so far away from that in Flex. And I think we're even far away from defining what the benchmarks are that we should be measuring.
Yeah.
So everyone's definition of occupancy is slightly different. Everyone's definition of profit probably includes different things in Clockwise versus Patch. So I think even defining those metrics, we've still got a long way to go in our industry.
Yeah, even for us, the work we do in Ireland with the Connected House project, we've been tasked with identifying occupancy. And not everybody puts their bookings through the system. They have other systems, they have walk-ins. And then the other side of it is, and like, not to say, like, hotels are a simple way to, measuring occupancy in hotels is far simpler. You have a limited amount of nights and a limited amount of rooms. And obviously, I'm sure there's ancillary occupancy measurements and all that. But when you break down a co-working space into, varying sizes, and then you have day passes, dedicated desks, you have bundles, you have off-peak offerings, on-peak offerings, you have meeting rooms, you have events. Like, that's not one single occupancy piece, So how to measure all that is nearly impossible, really.
Yeah, I mean, we try, so revenue occupancy is kind of is the metric that we're trying to capture that in. Like, what is the capacity of the venue for events? What is the capacity of the venue for monthly recurring revenue, etc.? And then you can kind of say, okay, well, based on that, I am X, revenue capacity, because there are, particularly at Patch, like, we have so many different strings to our bow. We have open spaces, we have public areas, we have meeting rooms, we have events, plus we have co-working, resident desks, and private offices too. So adding all that complexity in, then trying to benchmark against it all is super difficult. And I think that, kind of again, the conversation today, but also the reason that we all come to Juicy, is to connect with like-minded peers who ultimately do want to share. And I think there's a good larger group, or large enough group now, that's starting to build of peers and people that actually want to share that information and want to have those conversations. It's ultimately building our own community. Like, we sit on stage and talk about community for our members, but actually the critical part for us is, how do we as flex space operators develop our own community to land us in a more strong position when it comes to talking to investors or comes to talking to property people? Because that's the difficulty, isn't it? You walk into those rooms and they still don't quite get it, and we're still trying to get it, and you've got to meet in the middle somewhere and have those conversations. So yeah,
I think that's still the gap as well. I think we speak a lot about community from a member perspective, but there's still a lot of work to do with our own industry level community. And, we will continue to feed into data sets and use different tools to be able to analyse that data. But I think we also need to be talking about it as operators together, so that these conversations are continuing alongside feeding your numbers into something.
Yeah.
And it's come up a few times today, actually. People have shared that they find one of the challenging aspects of the industry competition, and people feeling like they can't be transparent for one reason or another. One reason being people feel like other operators have it all together and they don't want to reveal what's going on for them. Yeah. Has that been a barrier at all then to gathering data? Has there been a bit of a learning curve for people to realise it's safe, it's okay to share?
I think so. The data that I'm gathering is very much just operational costs. So we're not touching revenue, we're not touching EBITDA profit, we're not touching salaries. Like they're all kind of competition law things that I don't want to be touching. I don't want to get involved in that. And obviously, there is Win, and Win is gathering some of that data and has it there. And I know they're struggling to get regional people to start committing to delivering that data too. I think that, as I said before, there's like a movement of people that are more interested in kind of starting to share now. And I think as we grow up as a bit of an industry, actually more people are more keen to say, actually I haven't got it all together. It's actually quite difficult, this. I'm not at the capacity that I said I was, because I'm struggling over here. Have you got some tips? Have you got some ideas? And actually, I think it's probably even more difficult, I guess, in cities where it's saturated and there's so many co-working operators or flex operators. Because then you're not going to turn around. If I was opposite Katie, will I turn around to Katie and go, I'm not doing very well over here, can you help me? Because she'll be like, well, so whereas I think we're quite fortunate in that we're regional in a way that we're not treading on each other's toes. So that's why we have a good relationship, because we're never going to really clash. But I think that is always going to be a difficulty, is that particularly in those areas where there are a number of co-working operators or flex space operators, that's where that competition kind of sparks up. And it's the same as in restaurants and hotels and stuff as well. I guess, you know, there's always going to be that competition, and it's healthy. I think as long as there is a decent enough like open communication between those people, still good things can come from that.
A shared interest in the industry, because there is the whole rising tide piece, lifts all boats. But yeah, of course, it's just a realistic element of competition because people care about their space and they want it to do well. So it's natural, isn't it?
I think the other thing is you're probably going to have a natural migration of data through the industry as people start moving from company to company as well. And I think that hasn't really happened in co-working yet, because Anne-Marie's touched on the point a few times that like, I think everybody in co-working right now has had another career somewhere else. You know, like, you know, given the I suppose the age of the industry in its current form. So I think you probably get to a stage where, you know, someone goes from Clockwise to Patch, moves around. That tells, well, we did this over here, and eventually that will kind of work its way out as well, I'd imagine.
I think that's starting already, actually. 'Cause Patch have actually got some.
Patch has got someone from Clockwise.
Interesting.
She's fantastic.
In our panel.
Watch your back then.
She's gonna leave now. Cheers, guys.
But in our panel just then, you know, you've got two guys who used to work at WeWork, one now at X and Y and one now at Cobra. So you are starting to see that now.
And even at the point that Paddy touched on today from Collier's is with asset owners and landlords actually starting their own brands now. And that shows again that there's no people in the market, that you don't need to go and actually get an operator to come in and take a space. There's probably talent out there if you're crafty enough to get the right people that can probably start one up internally for you, you know.
One thing we look to do with Flex That Works is always have quite practical kind of tips or pieces of advice from anyone who comes on for people who are listening. So I'm curious from this perspective and the ops side of things. We have lots of people who listen in rural spaces. They might be, you know, owner operators. If they have not begun, and data might sound like a big scary word. Like if you were to break it down from the ops side of things, what ought they to start, you know, what should they start measuring? I'm careful with the should word because people are so busy and it's not like you should be doing that. But, you know, if you were to do anything, what would it be from an ops or systems perspective? What would you make sure to be at least doing? And then what would you be measuring?
Yeah. So I think it's important to have a balanced view of how your business is operating and the performance of your business. So I think commercials are always going to come first. So I would be definitely tracking your occupancy, however that's defined in your organisation, and your revenue, because there are many different streams that will feed into that. Your controllable costs versus your fixed costs, because again, very different. Your team on the ground will have much more control over things like cleaning costs and costs that they spend on members versus things like business rates, utilities, not very much control over. Profit, obviously, and then we measure as our metric, and it's been quite a contentious topic today, but from a member experience perspective, we measure Net Promoter Score, which again is popular in the hospitality industry, is starting actually much more to feed into flex space now. It seems like everyone's measuring it. People aren't 100% confident that it's the right metric for them. But definitely some form of member sentiment or feedback, whether that's being obtained just through conversations or you're sending out a survey. And then some form of risk or compliance. So your retention scores, your churn, how many people are you managing to hold on to, how many people are leaving your business and understanding the reasons why. So they're the main things, I would say.
We had an owner operator in earlier who was like, I just realized my churn number is like really good, but I've just never measured it because my space is so small. So I think that there's almost an expected mindset, you know, where we must be behind or potentially struggling, or it's hard because we're single site, but actually you might be really strong, do you know, based on the numbers.
I think with
how about
that,
you, Ben?
like it's really, so the first thing, depending on where those people are positioned, actually just making sure you have separate P&Ls for every site as well, I think is really important. Like a lot of people, particularly when you're starting out, just like just lump stuff all in one thing. It doesn't really matter. It's all on a balance sheet somewhere. But actually start off as you mean to go on. Like you may not plan to necessarily grow right now, but always as you start opening those sites, have that one P&L. If you do have central costs, feed that into the bottom of your P&L, so you can actually see as a company, are you being profitable? It's not just a black hole void where your central costs are and your sites are all here looking amazing, and then there's a load of money over here that you're just spending. So I think that kind of relates to that. And I think from our side, similar, it's ultimately just the P&L metrics. So revenue and EBITDA is really important, just to be able to understand, is your business washing its face? Are you okay? Are you going to stay open in a few years' time? And then we do also do NPS. So even that has been mentioned a few times today. I think it is an important metric. I think it's not the only metric, and we've agreed on that. I think that as part of our NPS survey we do, there is the classic NPS question, but actually there's 10 other questions that are actually more important data points that we want to pull, that pull more information for us in member sentiment. And then one of the easiest things that I recommend that operators do is coffee chats. That's what we call them. And I have a Google sheet that literally the site teams have been tasked with every week completing. I think it's 3 people per person in our sites. And they go and they literally have a coffee chat with someone. They don't have to be sitting having a cup of coffee. It could be at the coffee machine. It could be having a chat with someone at the front desk, whatever it is. And and there's no kind of leading questions. You must have sort of like in a McDonald's or something where there's a sticky thing saying, I must ask these questions. It's just, how are you doing today? How are you finding things? And trying to just draw a bit of information from them. And they have to put that in this Google sheet for us to be able to then pull that data, pull that information. And you've got then, as an overall basis of what we can look at from a member sentiment point of view, I've got NPS plus all the contents from there. I've got, and our NPS we do the honeymoon period. So when they first join after the first month, and then 6 months recurring. So we then have that too. So you've got the NPS data, you've got the coffee chat data, and then you've got Google reviews. You lump all that together and you get a pretty good idea of how your business is doing. And if there are gaps or things that keep on being flagged.
So did a master's way back, and a part of it was interviews like that. And it was, I didn't realise structured interviews were, obviously I was new to it, so it was like the structured interview, obviously it's going to go off down rabbit holes, and you need to be able to pick out that qualitative. Are you applying structures to the interviews? I'm just wondering how you're,
not at all.
No.
For me, the site teams know best. And like ultimately, I don't want it to be a structured interview. I don't want it to be like, are you enjoying working at Patch? That's not the point. The point is the general sentiment of this person that they're enjoying it? Has this person sat there and said, you know what, actually, I haven't enjoyed this, or I don't like that there's dogs on the floor, or I don't like whatever it is. Cool, make a note of it. Because then if 25 other people in the last couple of weeks say exactly the same problem that they've got, we can find that data. And the joy of Claude and AI currently is you can literally go, boom, here's all this data, talk to me, and it spits out, it spits out the information for you and can tell you in clear English, you've got a problem here, or you haven't got a problem here.
The single P&L per location makes absolute sense, because you've heard me say it time and time again, no matter what name is over the door, I've never seen or come across 2 spaces run the same. No. They're always very different location. The community manager will bring a different vibe. No matter what standards or procedures or processes you have in every place, seems to have its own flair or its own little nuances, I suppose, for want of a better expression. So that makes loads of sense.
Question to both of you. What is the next operational challenge that you think operators need to be aware of?
I mean, I can talk about AI very briefly, because I think that probably is the next operational challenge, because we're seeing it at the moment. AI being used ineffectively, I think, is the piece. AI can be used amazingly, particularly for operators. Like, my God, does it streamline some of the stuff I need to do and for my teams. But it can also be abused in the way that it basically can just generate tons of paperwork, tons of policies, tons of documents. Ultimately, then someone's got to sift through, or worse, feed into AI because they can't understand it. Because it's literally, there's a world of AI talking to AI and emails, and it's just so. I think that an operational challenge at the moment is just seeing through that and making sure that as operators, we all use it effectively, but also train that knowledge down to our teams. How can they use it effectively? How can it save them time? And we talked about it earlier, and it's been talked about in another panel. How does something like that actually free up time for our teams to deliver better, more exceptional member experience? Because right now it can't do our dishwashers for us, so they've still got to do that. But what can it do that will help us?
I think it is adapting to more competitive markets because I think the industry is just going to continue to grow. So I think in the win data actually earlier that Johnny presented, he had a few cities on there, but I think Bristol was over 90% occupied.
Wow.
There's going to be investment in Bristol. There's going to be new operators in Bristol. So those operators like us who are already there might have it nice and sweet at the moment. But how do you keep up with the competition? We did a huge piece of work at the beginning of this year, actually back end of last year, and then rolled it out to our location teams at the beginning of this year on value proposition. And it is very different, like you say, from location to location, but there has to be some golden thread that joins all of your locations and who you are as a brand. And I think it's really important that the teams in your buildings understand what their differentiator is versus the other buildings in their local area, because that is only going to increase, I think, across.
But for multi-space operators like yourselves, is there a practice of moving staff around to kind of go down there for a few weeks, see what those guys are doing, to kind of share that knowledge within the teams? Is that something that you guys actively do?
Where possible. Similarly, both of our portfolios are quite widely distributed. So I think it's easier when you have multiple locations in the same city or close to. But I mean, we have kind of clustered some areas. So we have Bristol, Cheltenham and Cardiff. There's a lot of sharing of resource and best practice across those three. Manchester, Liverpool, Leeds, anywhere that's easily accessible. But to get someone from Belfast to Bremen consistently is more of a challenge.
And you'd wonder what the benefits of doing it for. I mean, if you have a cluster within, like Liverpool is very different to Manchester, right?
Yeah.
So, where was Gary's? Eastbourne and...
They're not Pool. What's the other one?
Anyway, he was basically, there's two spaces, they have 20 minutes of each other, and he said they might as well be in different countries.
That's what I mean,
So there'd be no benefit in
Coming back to me.
I think the
Not there though.
The one quick point on that is that the important part of that piece has just slipped my mind. It's gone now. What I was going to say.
What was the important part of that
I
piece?
can't remember. It's gone. It was there. It was my thought. Right, it's gone.
It actually will come back, and in the meantime, I'm going to ask you the quick fire round because Jack is up to 90 waving at me. You're nearly there, Jack. It's nearly the end of the day. Quick fire round.
Right.
In one word, what's the best thing about co-working?
I think. One word.
Can be more than one word. Like not too many more.
Not too many words. Basically, preventing loneliness is the piece for me. I think improving mental health for people.
Love it. How about you?
The people.
Nice.
Brilliant. Next one. What's the worst thing about co-working? You can say it.
People not stacking dishwashers properly.
Fair enough.
Data. The consistency piece around benchmarking. So that.
Nice.
Predictability.
I think consistency is a good word. I think consistency in general is the worst thing about co-working. It's very difficult to be consistent, I think, and be authentic and genuine at the same time. So I think it's,
Interesting. Guys, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure.
We'll have to chat to you again another time because we could keep
so
talking.
much.
It's been brilliant to have you.
We definitely would have filled a half an hour.
Thank you so much.